All right, guys, we are going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome everybody to our first Business to Business Best Practice webinar, our Marketing and Advertising. My name is Erin Hiles and I am the Director of Membership and Programs for Barren Inc., the Barren County Chamber of Commerce. I am so excited to see everyone on Microsoft Teams today and even more excited to have a panel of local industry leaders to present to us today. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel. When I call your guys' name, if you could just let us know who you work for and some of your experience in marketing and advertising. First up, we have Greg Bowen.
Well, thank you very much, Erin, for allowing me to be a part of this panel and today. And thank you to everyone that is showing up and participating in this today. My name is Greg Bowen. I've lived here in Barren County for 31 years with my family. My wife, Sue, and I, we have raised a family here, and both of them now married, raising their own families, live in this community also. So we are glad to be a part of this. I have worked for Commonwealth Broadcasting, a local company, for almost 16 years now. And in that 16 years, I have served in lots of different roles, but right now serve in sales and management. And through all of that, we have 17 radio stations throughout the state of Kentucky, 8 being in Glasgow in the Bowling Green market, with other markets in E-Town and Madisonville. And one of the big things about Commonwealth Broadcasting that allures a lot of people, and me especially, is that they care about the community. They are glad to be a part of the community. And whenever the community is thriving and growing, guess what? Our company is too. So thank you from Commonwealth Broadcasting for allowing us to be a part of this today.
Thank you, Greg. Next up, we have Stacey Biggs.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacey Biggs. I'm the Executive Vice President for Marketing, Business Planning, and Development here at TJ Regional Health. I have been with TJ for 3 years now, a little over 3 years actually, and in the 10 years prior to that, I served as the Chief Marketing Officer at WKU in Bowling Green. I am originally from Columbia, actually. That's where my husband and I both grew up and went to school. Then we left there to move to Bowling Green to go to WKU, and we stayed there, luckily. And we were there for 30 years, but now we live here in Glasgow, and happy to be here. As Greg said, I've raised my kids. They are grown and gone, and now starting families of their own. So that's where I am in life. As far as marketing goes, I sort of specialize in marketing planning and development and implementation, and also social media marketing. So some of the things that I oversee specifically here are all of our marketing, advertising, our branding, our social media, the TJ Regional Health website, special events, and then business development and growth. So if you see us opening new clinics or new service lines, that comes through my office. And then I also oversee the new med spa that we have here in Glasgow. So, and that's a little bit about me. Looking forward to hearing about everybody else.
Perfect. Thank you, Stacey. Next up, we have Chris Houchins. Chris, are you still with us?
How about there? Technical problems. Okay, yay.
You're good.
I'm glad I had the first one. I'm Chris Houchins. I'm the sales manager at the Gerald Printing location here in Glasgow. Gerald has 6 locations across Kentucky and Tennessee. The Glasgow office, which I oversee and also do sales for. I pretty much say we're from Glasgow east down the Parkway, down into Columbia, Campbellsville, Metcalfe County, Tompkinsville, all those areas. As Greg said, I was born and raised here. Actually, I came in through TJ. Actually, lived here all my life. I have 2 kids, a senior at Barren County and a 8th grader at Barren County Middle School. My wife Laura, she is an instructor at WKU Glasgow. My marketing and advertising background is I actually started in radio. I worked in radio actually at Greg's group before it was called Commonwealth Broadcasting, when it was just 2 stations out on Happy Valley Road back in the day. Worked there actually when I started in high school. Worked in radio for 15 years on and off, part-time and full-time. Wound up becoming a marketing director of a healthcare organization. Went to be an online director of the Bowling Green Daily News for a couple of years. I've taught adjunct advertising at Western Kentucky University, taught both advertising classes and some communication classes there. Written a couple of books on marketing and advertising. My book I love, I guess, it's called Brand Zeitgeist, came out about 12 years ago. Kind of hung up that side of my life to focus more on here at Gerald. But like the other said, I'm happy to be here today.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. And last but not least, we have Crystal Oswald.
Thank you, Erin. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to serve on the panel today. I appreciate that. As Erin said, my name is Crystal Oswald, and I'm the account executive at ATM Media Solutions. We own and operate some of the digital billboards here in Glasgow. We're actually a fairly new advertising company, having started right 2 years ago in the midst of the pandemic. And I came on board about 6 months after startup. So I've been with ATM for about 1.5 years now. Prior to coming here, I worked in sales and marketing in the insurance and banking industries for about 7 years. I've lived in Barren County for the better part of 20 years since I was in early high school. And I've worked with Larry Glass some over the years, and he gave me the opportunity to work with ATM, and I was thrilled to take it.
Perfect. Thank you, Crystal. And again, thank you to each of our panelists for serving on today's panel. Before we dive into the discussion, just a few housekeeping rules. Today's webinar is being recorded, so just make sure you keep your mic on mute for the duration of the Zoom call. We will have a Q&A at the end of this meeting. If you have a question, you can enter that in the chat box function. Amber from our team is going to submit a test for you all to see. And now that covers our housekeeping rules, we're going to go ahead and dive into the panel. Panelists, I have prepared each of you a list of questions. I will start by asking a question to a specific panelist. However, if a fellow panelist has any additional insight or would want to chime in on the question, please feel free to do so. Stacy, the first question is for you. You have a strong background in marketing and oversee the marketing team for TJ. Can you touch on the significance of a marketing and advertising plan for businesses and why it's important to set aside dollars for advertising?
Absolutely. So I am definitely a planner by nature. Those of you who have worked with me very much know that about me. So for me and my team, having a plan, even if it's just a simple checklist, is absolutely how we function on a day-to-day basis. We have a lot of projects going on at any given time, and so some of those are one-off projects, and some of those do require a marketing plan to really keep us focused. I would probably touch on 3 key points as far as why it's so important to have a marketing plan and a budget. The main one I think is because your marketing plan, it's really your roadmap. It tells you where you and others are going and how you're going to get there. So, it really links kind of the strategic direction of your business to the results that you're seeing in your business. And so whether you are a marketing department of 1 or 5 like us here in our group, or of 50, it really helps you, having a plan helps you to allocate both your human resources and your financial resources so that you're using all of those things efficiently. And it helps you to focus on what your goals are and where you want to be. The second point that I would touch on is that a marketing plan doesn't have to be fancy, but it does have to be flexible. So we write marketing plans for lots of things that we have going on. COVID is a good example of flexibility because we would put a communication marketing plan together for COVID, especially early on, and then we would have to pivot because something changed on us. And so we had to be flexible with those plans. There's not just one way to do a marketing plan, lots of different ways to do them. Honestly, if there was just one way to do a marketing plan, it'd be a whole lot easier to do, to be perfectly honest about it. But your marketing plan should answer some basic questions that we can go into in a little more detail if we have time. But the third point that I would touch on would be to plan your work and then work your plan. So, don't create a marketing plan and then just ignore it. Just like you wouldn't put a destination into your GPS and then just turn it off and guess on how you're going to get somewhere. Same way with your marketing plan. If you have your goals in mind and you have those things laid out in your plan, then you can follow that plan and really stay on task and stay focused and hopefully reach those goals that you've set for yourself.
Perfect. Thank you, Stacy. And that's such a good analogy with the GPS, just staying on plan. I know that's something we've tried to implement here on the Chamber of being more thoughtful, planning out, and then again, having some flexibility. Would any of our other panelists like to chime in or have some insight on that question?
One of the analogies I often use when I'm talking about marketing plans to people is, we've all been to the grocery store, right? And went in there at 5 o'clock and hungry, and we just start grabbing stuff off the shelf, and we go out with $100 worth of groceries, and we get back to the house, and we sit down and go, "What's for supper?" And we go, "I don't know. We don't have anything else to eat in the house." We've all done that, and that's the way a lot of people do their marketing. They just, it's whatever this salesperson came in today, so I'll do this media, or, oh, this looks good, oh, there's this, this Facebook promotion I want to do, and it's just kind of grab and throw. And when it comes down to the end of it, you don't know what you got. And so, a marketing plan is on paper and on purpose. It provides, actionable items that you can actually check off. For folks who are responsible for marketing and their job, it also provides a way to show marketing value, saying these are the items that we attempted to achieve. This is the return on investment we got, and this is what made it happen. It's a way to show show real results and real actionable items. And a lot of people are scared, like Stacy said, about it's not a hard thing to do. It just needs to be on paper and on purpose, and it can evolve. I mean, all of our marketing plans have evolved a lot in the last 2 years, and it's good to have a plan.
Did not realize I was on mute, y'all. Any other feedback from our other panelists before we move on to the next question? All right, Chris, our next question is for you. You've been working at Gerald Printing for a while now. You do a lot with print media, and then you guys also have promotional materials. What has been some of the biggest marketing and advertising trends you have seen over the past 5 years? In your opinion, which of those trends have been the most successful and why?
So, when I look back over the last 5 years, somehow I concentrate on the last 2, since big things happened over the last 2. And I think really it doesn't matter what happened the previous 3. The last 2 have really set the trend for what's going on in the world. And so, the pandemic has shifted society. And, we're all sitting here waiting to go back to normal. And we're never going to go back to normal. We're going to adapt to this new world, and that means creating marketing that adapts to that new world, looking at those new trends. And that's always been true, even if there wasn't a pandemic. If you were in 2012 and you were saying, well, I wish we could go back to the way we were marketing in 2010, that wouldn't work either. And so trends, come and go, but, going back to the plan, you've got to have a plan, you have to adapt and do what's going, what works best for today's market. As far as trends go, we've seen a big shift away from events in the last 2 years. Those are starting to come back, but some people are evaluating if those events are actually going to come back. Some of them are still kind of getting kicked down the road. But we are seeing more events. I think people are hungry to go out and do events, especially, with the weather getting better here in the next little bit. Something I've seen a lot of, and it's an overall shift in marketing that's been happening for a long time, is the shift to mobile. Mobile is there, and even the pandemic has pushed that ahead a little bit. I'm seeing more and more QR codes on things we print. It's still important to have a printed brochure, a printed business card, but a QR code is a way to link your printed item to your digital world as well. They're not hard to create, and when QR codes first came out, people didn't quite know what to do with them. They kind of went away for a bit, and now they've come back. Now that they're easier to use just with your phone's camera. My parents had a flip phone. I think they got a smartphone about a year ago just so they could do restaurant menus with a QR code. So, and more people are using QR codes. Obviously, the shift to social is important. I think we're going to talk about social a little bit later on in the hour, but obviously that's a big shift. As far as what we're doing here as well, a lot more direct mail. It's a great way to target individuals. Not only direct mail where you've got an address, but there's a post office officer program called EDDM, which is everyday direct mail, which means you don't have to have a list. You can just hit every mailbox on a route. So there's lots of changes, lots of shifts, but basically it's always, focusing on the customer.
Yes, and I'm so glad you mentioned the QR code. I don't know if anyone on here is football fans or watched the Super Bowl, but one of the most successful commercials this year, it was just a giant QR code on the screen. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. Any other feedback from our additional panelists? All right, we will move on to the next question. Greg, this one is for you. There are many different forms of advertising: print media, digital advertising, and of course, radio promotion. Can you touch on why it is so important to use different forms of advertising and marketing, and specifically touch on some of the benefits of radio promotion?
Absolutely. And there are many different forms of uh, going back to Stacy, what she mentioned earlier. If you do not have some type of plan, you will drown in all of the forms out there. You will drown just in the different forms of social media that people want you to buy. And you can spend millions and millions of dollars. So you have to be able to identify your clientele, who you're trying to reach, and that varies from business to business and person to person. You will never hear me talk about any type of different type of media, whether it be print, broadcast, billboard. All of these work hand in hand. They don't, one, if you can find the budget to work one with the other, I promise you it will just grow your business more. Now that leads me back to I will always promote, of course, broadcast media because it is broadcast. It reaches a lot of people and still does today. One of the things I want to get the elephant out of the room because this is one of the questions that comes to us so often in radio. Hey, what about that Sirius or a Spotify or a Pandora? Oh, yeah. You know what? They have a presence. Okay. The same as they have presence in print media, social media, all of these different things have presence. But what are you doing for the local person? Does Pandora help out local? Does Spotify help out local? You know, we talk about wanting to take care of our own communities. All right. That is the big deal in broadcast media, especially radio. And we can identify with that local presence the same way with every person on this call today identifies. If we were to ask you, and our own community is kind of going through that right now, what are you doing to promote local? What are you doing to take a stance? And with radio promotion, we do that, and we do it in many forms of different ways. Maybe it's uh, us promoting a special event, or being involved in the community, or what's going on around the square, those type things. But it's also important to promote the people that we see in Walmart. And I use this analogy quite often. If I'm working the way I'm supposed to be working in advertising and working with broadcast media, whenever I meet you in the aisle at Walmart, I don't have to run to the next aisle because I don't want to talk to you. I want to be able to say, hey, how are things going? Are they going well for you? What can we do differently? Can we? And you will never hear me and sitting down with someone to talk, say, hey, maybe you ought to use this, or maybe you ought to incorporate this. Take a little of this budget and use it in this form or fashion. And I promise you, they will work better together. So I hope that answered the question.
That was perfect. I'm always like the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, broaden your horizon. There's different forms of marketing and just more opportunities to reach your target market. Any other panelists want to provide some feedback to that answer? All right, our next question is for Crystal. Crystal, you work with ATM Media Solutions and you see a lot of different ads on a daily basis. In your professional opinion, can you share with us what makes a good ad and how can our audience create an ad that stands out to potential consumers?
So for us, digital billboard advertising is what we really focus on, obviously, and it's kind of in its own category aside from some of the other forms of advertising, simply because what would work on maybe social media or even a static billboard would not necessarily translate well on a digital billboard. So I would say that knowing your platform and tailoring your ads to translate effectively is absolutely key to good marketing. We have to, in our industry, be very, very concise. That's what we have to focus on. So our consumers because our consumers do not have the same amount of time to ingest as much information as, say, someone watching a commercial or scrolling through their social media stream. So for us, what makes a good ad is making sure that individuals who are driving by and seeing our ads, they know exactly who's advertising, what the ad is addressing, and particularly so that they can recall it whenever they need that service or product. As for creating an ad that stands out for potential consumers, on the billboard specifically, we like to use like bold colors that really stand out with the brightly lit backboards and large legible fonts. Those are particularly important for those ads. But as a general rule for marketing, if we can create something that's funny or cute or something that appeals on an emotional level and focus that around our client's branding or their logo, that really makes a difference in how people recall the ads when they're seeing them on the billboards.
Perfect. Thank you, Crystal. Any other feedback from our panelists on what makes a good ad and some potential tips on how they can catch their audience attention?
We do a ton of billboards, particularly the LED billboards, and we love to use those because they're so striking and they have potential to reach a lot of people. One of the things that I will say about billboards is that I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but to me, the most effective billboards, just like Crystal said, are the ones that are most concise. There's just, it's kind of a less is more thing as it relates to a billboard, and you know, a striking image, easy to read fonts. The ones that I probably don't get as much out of, although I usually notice them because I'm hypersensitive to those kinds of things, I guess. But if it looks like there's, you know, you try to put a novel up on the billboard, it's probably not going to be a very effective billboard because there's just not time.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Next, we have some general questions. These are not directed at any panelist in particular, but if you can provide some feedback on it, please feel free to do so. So my first kind of general question is, over time, social media has become one of the biggest forms of marketing for both small and large businesses. What is your general opinion on social media marketing? What are some of the good features, some of the bad features, and is there a downside to using social media as your only form of marketing?
Actually, I'll kind of throw in something actually on the tail end of the other question. With billboards especially, I agree with Stacy, not too many words is bad. That also comes into effect with some of the products we sell. We're doing a lot of political yard signage now, and they're wanting to put their entire, you know, political platform on the thing, on the yard sign, and you know, people are driving by at 55 miles an hour. Fewer words is better, especially on, you know, a big billboard. You can maybe get a few more, but on an 18 by 24 yard sign, corporate sign, you can't do that. To your question about social, you know, as I said earlier in my other question, people think social is the end all be all, and social is a good tool, but it's a platform and not a strategy. And I think a lot of times people go, well, that's what I'm just doing Facebook, or I'm just doing Instagram, or whatever it happens to be. It needs to be a part of your overall strategy, not your entire bag of tricks. The big thing about social is that, you know, and I like analogies, but something I was telling somebody the other day, they were saying, well, I'm just going to do Facebook. Well, you know, it's like if you were building a house and somebody said, well, what's your house plan? And you say, I'm going to use 2x4s. Okay. Yeah, you need a little bit more than that, and obviously you need 2x4s if you're going to build a house, but you need some, you know, there's other things that go along with that, and so, you know, having that be a part of your plan is great. Another big thing about social, people are building their whole marketing strategy on it, and you're basically building on land you don't own. You know, if Facebook changed their algorithm tomorrow, you'd be sunk. You know, making sure you own your customers. If the Facebook likes go away, that's okay, because I have all my customers' email addresses. I own my email address, and and even if they lost me on Facebook, they'd still know where to find me. And so it's a part of our marketing strategy, but it's not the whole end all be all.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Any other panelists have any feedback on social media marketing? All right.
Social media is big, but it's not everybody, and it never will be everyone. And that's why it has to work hand in hand. And just as Crystal and Chris and Stacy have emphasized, yeah, it takes the plan, it takes the planning of putting it into place. But and just like they were saying, on billboards and signs, guess what? A 30-second commercial along with those signs or whatever goes a long, long way to reinforce both of those aspects.
Yes, 100%. Next question. Barren County is considered a rural region of Kentucky. How is marketing and advertising different here as opposed to marketing or advertising in a larger metropolitan area such as Louisville?
I personally don't think there's a huge difference other than scale. It all goes back to who is your audience, what are you trying to accomplish, what are your goals, how are you going to measure those goals, and what strategies and tactics are you going to use. So I don't know that I would consider there to be a big difference on where you're doing it, whether it's a small town or a large city, other than scale and the number of people probably that you have at your disposal and maybe the budget that you would have to spend. But the basic concepts, in my opinion, are the same.
Perfect. All right. Any other panelists want to add on to that?
If anything, I say we have it better, but because obviously the budget's a big thing. You're not going to spend as much, and kind of like Greg was saying earlier, you can sometimes do your market research walking down the aisle at Walmart.
Yes, perfect. All right. Anyone else?
That also, it's because we're small town, we get a lot of a word of mouth that makes it a big difference too. So once you have those, your tendrils sunk into those other areas of advertising, we have the community that does a lot of the work for us as well.
Yes. All right. And then one last question for each of you until we transition into our Q&A period. Stacy, I'll start with you. What is your number one tip when it comes to marketing and advertising that you can share with the audience today?
Honestly, it's hard to choose just one, really hard to choose just one tip. But I guess if I had to pick my top one, it would be to know your audience and to build your marketing plan to cater to whoever your audience is and wherever they are. So if, for example, if I'm trying to reach our audience tends to skew a little bit older audience than when I worked at WKU, for example. It was a very different audience that I was trying to reach at that point. I'm probably not trying to reach my current audience on TikTok. It's different for different people though. So knowing who your audience is and where they are and the best ways to reach them, I think would be my number one tip.
Perfect. All right, Chris, we're going to ask you the same question. What is your number one tip for marketing and advertising?
So this is kind of an overview thing, but I think a lot of companies, or especially local companies, miss this. You need to work on your brand. And branding is sometimes a little bit of a scary, weird word, and people don't always understand what it means, and people think it just means your logo. But the brand is really the story that people can tell about your business. And even if they have never interacted with your business, the brand is the story that they tell themselves and tell other people. And like we just said, word of mouth is huge here. So you need to make sure you have a strong brand. And this is probably the only group I could ever probably use this analogy with. But, since we're only a skip away from it, everyone on this call probably understands what a W burger is, correct? And so everybody's nodding. Even if you've never been to W's, you can tell me exactly what the W story is. We can all say squeezed and unsqueezed. We can all talk about the wax paper, the onion, the sauce, all the things that make a W burger. And even if you've never been there, you can tell that story. And so I would say that W's has a better brand than a lot of hamburger restaurants in this area because, just hamburger restaurant number 3 down the road. Can you tell a story about that? Is there a brand there? And while I'm sure the ladies at W's are not, brand strategists, they've done a good job because they've been doing it for a long time, and that's what a brand really takes. And the analogy is that it takes the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is today. And so you need to start working on your brand and making sure that your customers can tell that story about your business to other people. And so I'd say number one tip: get a brand going.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of we just finished our consolidation, got a new logo. That was one of the first things we did with the rebrand was creating a branding guide. So thank you, Chris, so much for bringing that up. Greg, this one's for you. Number one tip when it comes to marketing and advertising.
Hey, you guys been using some analogies. I'm going to use one. So I want you to picture yourselves in WKU's LT Smith Stadium or inside Diddle Arena, and it's packed to the max. And you're standing out in the middle of the field or in the middle of the circle on the court, okay? And they hand you the mic and they tell you you've got 30 seconds. What is that one thing that you would tell every person in that stadium or in Diddle Arena that they ought to know about your business, but they don't know it yet? How would you brand yourselves? Okay? And that's how I would say to start. If you could, we lived in a perfect world, all right? That is how I would say approach your business, approach what you're trying to do. That puts it down to some small bullet points and gets the point across. Okay?
Yes, absolutely. Crystal, on to you. What is the number one tip you can give our audience today for marketing and advertising?
I would just say to diversify as much as you can. You know, like we've all touched on, we all have to work together when it comes to advertising to really make sure that somebody is getting what they need out of advertising. One thing is not going to work across the board for you. You have to learn to put your hands in a little bit of the different baskets out there. And because of that, I would say tailoring that. You can't just have one specific type of advertising for all platforms. So that's what I would recommend, is diversifying and learn to tailor your advertising for your different audiences and your different platforms.
Yes, absolutely. Diversification is key to marketing. Thank you again to each of our panelists for presenting to our group today. We got a lot of really good information and insight. Don't worry, we're recording this and we'll make it public on our website if you want to watch it again. We are going to go ahead and transition over to our Q&A period. So if you have a question, just type it in that chat box. Amber from our team, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to read a few of those questions. All right, Amber, are you there?
Yep, sorry, I'm here.
Oh, you're good.
So I'm not, let me make sure, I'm not seeing any questions that have come over. Are you seeing any on your side, Erin?
Let me double check. I do not. If you guys have a question, you can either unmute yourself or just type it in the chat box and we would be more than happy to ask that for you.
Hi, sorry, let me turn my camera on. Hi, there I am. Hello, hi. Thank you guys for speaking today. My name is Haley. I'm a puppeteer, marketing person, data person at Kentucky Kids on the Block in Bowling Green. And recently we've been doing a lot of rebranding and expanding our online presence, because that's not where our focus has really been in the past few years. And one of my questions, or I guess my question, is we're considering starting to get a little bit more into videos, because images on social media are easy because you scroll on an image, you immediately see it. But I'm wondering if you guys have any tips on ways, like things that would encourage viewers to interact with a video, because it is very easy to see a video on social media and just scroll past it. And we can have a lot of really cool stuff on there. And once they start watching the video, it can be very engaging. But I'm wondering if you guys have any tips on how to encourage viewers to actually interact with a video. Thank you. That's my question.
The tip that I would offer is, and the stat I'm about to give is fuzzy in my head, but and it's old from back when I was still teaching. But there was a study done by YouTube that showed how much video viewership drops off each, I think, 5 or 10 seconds after a video starts. and it was, 100% at 10 seconds, and it dropped to 50% by 15 seconds. I mean, so my best tip for video would be get your main message out there quick, get them hooked. And you can do some long form, long tail type content, but really that's more of a special place. If you're just trying to get a quick hit of somebody, 15-second video probably is a better bet than doing a long form video as far as, like in social. Now, putting a long form video, showing one of your shows or one of your school visits or something like that, that'd be great to put up on YouTube and let people watch that, let them dig into that content. But if you're just trying to grab people's attention, I'd go short and quick and kind of do a big, splash.
That would be
Thank
one
you.
of my questions also would be, okay, what's the audience that you're trying to hit? Is the audience that you're trying to hit people that are making donations? Are you trying to get people to a special event? What are you trying to push? If you're trying to raise money, that's different than trying to draw kids' attention to where they're going to pay more attention to you whenever you go to their school. And there are different platforms for that also. You wouldn't want to go to YouTube if you're showing the kids portion of the program. You probably want to put that on YouTube Kids. So, and not to put it in micronisms or anything like that, but I mean, know where you want to go, what the audience is. That's the narrowing the focus, as Stacy referred to very, very early in the conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Great question. Do we have any more questions?
I've got one.
All right, go ahead.
How do you go about, or what are some of the methods you guys have used to just find out your customer segments or to learn more about your avatars? Like, what are some of the methods you use to get data out of them? Particularly in our situation, we're a nonprofit. We don't have a lot of money to spend on testing ads, which I've tried to stress, multiple platforms, not even just on social, but on everything, A-being everything. We're just not in that position just yet. I'm working on it. But what are some of the things you guys have used to find out about your avatars so that you get the most efficient return for your spend, no matter what platform it is?
I think that's probably a different answer for each of us because we're all in such different types of businesses. But for us, being in healthcare, we have a lot of data about our customers and our patients. And so we're able to look at things like, this is very specific to healthcare, but what sorts of diagnoses are we treating most often in our rural health clinics, for example? So if we recently discovered that 14% of the population of one of the counties we serve is diabetic. So that's something that we literally just found out. And so we're going to be doing a push over the next few months to talk about how to treat diabetes and how to live a healthier lifestyle. So we have that kind of data available. I'm sure the other folks have a completely different answer than what I just gave.
No, I appreciate it. That was very helpful.
And so one of the best ways I think, is just to ask. We send out customer surveys after we complete jobs for customers, and we don't, hit them too much. If they're a repeat customer, I think they only get that survey maybe every 6 months when they order. But it lists, obviously were they happy with the service that time and the job, but it also lists, are you interested in other things? And so that's a way for us to look at different segments of different products that we offer, whether it be ink on paper or signs or shirts or promo products. They might not even know that we offer those, but it's a way for us to segment out our customer base to show, oh, they're getting, forms from us now, but they're interested in t-shirts. And so it's a way to do research with your current customers, because it's a lot easier to build on that current customer than it is to go out and try to find new people.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Like Chris was saying, we make sure we tell our clients, make sure you're asking, because people will go out there and they'll see the ad and then they'll recall it later, but they won't tell you that when they walk into your store of, hey, this is where I saw your ad. So you make sure you're asking, but we also, with some of our ads, will make a point to you say, create an ad that says, if you see this ad, ask for this discount, or that's attached to like some of our job request ads that we've done have attached a certain key like a text message with a number attached to it so that if somebody's responding to it, it specifically tags that ad. So those are some of the things that we've done.
So you incentivize them telling you. Gotcha.
Yes.
One of the things that our sales team and everything would not be doing their job if one of the first questions that they asked a potential client or person, a nonprofit or whatever, would be, hey, what are other people in your industry telling you that's been successful? What have other forms, what has worked for them? It may not work in this community, but at least you would have some idea of where to start. And with that, you build off of that and say, okay, that's a great idea. What if we put this little spin on it? Or what if we incorporated this with it? But maybe that's dancing around your question just a little bit. But hey, knowledge is power, and you're not going to know until you ask. And in the first place, sometimes we are afraid to ask our own people that we're closest to what has worked for them in their places.
Got you. That's very helpful.
Great question, DeAndre. We have time for a few more questions. If you have one, go ahead and unmute yourself. Right.
While we wait for another question to come in, I wanted to go back to the social media question for just a minute. You asked what's your opinion on social media marketing and some of the good features and some of the downsides. And so I won't, this probably scares you. I used to, I taught social media marketing at WKU for several semesters, so I could talk about it for a while, but I won't. Two things though that I would say. One, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. It's so many good aspects to it. It's a great way to reach a large audience. Your audience can even become a voice for you and advocate for you by sharing your content and those kinds of things. There are lots of great positives. On the flip side, there's a ton of noise on social media. So, cutting through all that noise that's out there to make your message, your ad, your post, your video, whatever it happens to be, stand out this is definitely a challenge. And as Chris mentioned earlier, the algorithms change on the regular. So keeping up with those changes to make sure that our stuff isn't getting lost in the shuffle. And the other thing is there's always some shiny new platform to go out there and chase. And, again, it goes back to knowing your audience and what your purpose for your audience is and what you're trying to achieve, to know if it's worth chasing that shiny new platform and learning that, because it very well may be. But to know that but chasing all of the new platforms that come along could really spread you too thin. So, my recommendation as it relates to social media is pick 1, 2, pick 3 platforms and get really good at those. If you want to check out other things that come along, that's great, but be really good at least something.
Thank you, Stacy. Last call for questions.
I have a quick question. This is Steve Jones. I'm with CASA of South Central Kentucky. And I know a lot of we talk about marketing, we're talking about selling goods and services. Unfortunately, we don't sell a good or service. Our main goal of marketing is to recruit volunteers, and usually for long-term commitment. Some of our cases can last multiple years. Does anyone have any thoughts on how to approach marketing from a standpoint of, like, say, not selling somebody something, but getting them to make a long-term commitment to an organization at a volunteer level?
At its most basic, marketing is just a conversation with your audience. And to go back to my comment on branding is just a relationship with your audience. And so as long as those two things don't ever conflict, I think you have a potential for a long-term pattern there. And so as long as you're consistently sending the same message to the same audience, it eventually sinks through. And as long as that message never conflicts with the core brand that you put out, they should understand that, and they should come along with you on whatever you're doing. And so it's kind of going back to the what I said a moment ago of it's a long-term commitment, and making sure that message you're consistently sending out, and people want to rebrand all the time. And rebranding is probably a little bit of a fallacy at its core. I mean, obviously you freshen up your brand, you redo things, and sometimes things change. But as far as switching the message, that's a bad thing. But if you can consistently send that same message to the same group, they'll eventually understand what you're coming at, and you'll build a relationship.
And Steve, that's a great question. And we also recruit volunteers for the hospital, but also for our hospice program. And we've struggled with, well, particularly it's been very difficult with COVID. You know, had to keep people apart instead of bringing people together, and that's been a struggle. But I feel your pain for that, because getting volunteers and getting long-term commitments from folks, it really is a challenge. But like Chris said, I think it's the biggest piece of that is building a relationship with those people.
And for nonprofits, it's big on this, but it's the same for profits as well. We also want to say, here's what we're selling, here's what we've got. Really, marketing should be what's in it for me, from the customer side. So instead of saying we need volunteers, the message could be enhance your own life. Make your life better by helping someone else. And switching that message or switching that concept a little bit, that changes the way that people receive that message.
And I'll just add this small portion. If we don't ask someone to help us, they're not going to. Okay? I can be trying to lift up the biggest, heaviest piece of furniture ever. If I never ask someone to help me move it, I'm never going to get it moved by myself. So how can we expect something to move business-wise, nonprofit-wise, or whatever, if we're not telling someone about our story, if we're not asking to participate in that with us? We're just not going to happen. So keep telling your story, find the avenues that can help tell your story, and asking people. Sometimes all you have to do is ask.
A challenge we face with telling our story, though, is that it's all confidential. It's all juvenile court. And so we can speak in broad terms, but if we could tell details, it would be easier to recruit people because they'd realize what an issue this is. So that's a challenge we face just in getting our material out there and our message out there.
In past, and dealing with people that have come through your program, which is an awesome program, by the way, and through that, do you think where it's been successful, there might be an opportunity for someone to come in and tell their story and say, this is how CASA has helped me, and help brand that way?
Yeah, we do that. We actually have on our website a form, or actually a current volunteer advocate, and each year we select a volunteer advocate of the year, and they record a video for us, and they talk in generalities about their case, and we use that as well.
Yes, testimonials are definitely a very powerful form of advertising and marketing. That's one of the things we're actually working on right now. Great question, Steve. Before we wrap up today, I just want to take the opportunity to thank each of our panelists again for serving on this panel and providing your knowledge and expertise with our fellow chamber members. Before we leave, we have a few upcoming events. Friday, we have a ribbon cutting for the Furry Farmhouse. They are a new pet boarding and grooming business here in town. That's going to be Friday at 11 a.m. I've heard a rumor there's going to be puppies there, so if you like puppies, definitely come out to this event. And then finally, we have our Achievement in Business News Conference next Thursday. We will be announcing our Magnolia recipient in our 2022 Small Business Person of the Year, and that is next Thursday from 10:30 to 11:30 at WKU's campus in Glasgow. Again, thank you each of our panelists for hopping on here today, and then thank you to each of our members for supporting this event and attending and taking some time out in your day to carve out some professional development opportunities. All right, we're going to go ahead and end the call, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you all.